kind of like calculated the amount of gigs roughly that I did at Space, and it's close to the 100 mark like over the years. After my first season, I basically DJ'd pretty much every single bar apart from Mambo and Café Del Mar, which I did in my second year, and I played Eden and Es Paradis in my first year. He's about to leave. I was like, sorry, in Spanish. I was like, I've been waiting here since 10 o'clock. I was like, I just need 2 minutes of your time. And he's like, come on then. And he goes into the office, and man, this guy, he's like eyeballing, like, you know, looking at me straight in the eye. Like, you can feel it, like, as in, are you wasting my time or not?
No, you look fantastic, Marco Loco.
Don't force it. No,
I am not forcing it, my friend. I'm just jealous that you live in Thailand.
I'm jealous you live in Croatia, so let's not say jealous. I mean, like, at the end of the day, the grass is always greener, you know, and we're both happy where we are, correct?
Of course. When did you first arrive in Ibiza? What year
2002.
was it? 2002, was it?
Yeah.
Good year. That was
a holiday.
Ah, right, okay. What about your first working year?
Obviously 2003.
Ah. So the Ibiza vibe just bit you straight away, yeah? You just caught it.
So 2001, I did a DJ season in Tenerife. Right. And I absolutely loved it. And then the following season, some of my local DJ friends there told me that something like the Romanian mafia are coming over and you shouldn't come back. It's not you. It's like everybody, like, you know, really. And I was like, okay. And then I was at university at the time, and a bunch of my friends were going to Ibiza on holiday, and there was an option to go for 1 or 2 weeks. And I was like, cool, I'll go for 2 weeks. And as soon as I got to Ibiza, because I did the season in Tenerife the year before, I saw the worker camaraderie, like the way it worked. And I was like, wow. I was like, I did that in Tenerife. Imagine doing that in Ibiza. So the following year, 2003, that's when it started.
Did you know what Ibiza was all about, though, compared to Tenerife?
I knew that I basically knew that it was the DJ capital of the world. That was the main thing that I knew at that time.
And were you DJing?
Yeah. I started DJing in 97.
97, Vinyl Boy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Proper. And what sort of sound did you start playing, originate?
So I was very fortunate because when I started DJing, Funky House was like in the charts. It was like, you know, Spiller, Groove Jet, Bob Sinclair, I Feel For You.
Top of the pops.
I mean, just like a few years before hip hop was dominating, like, you know, I'm talking about like BBC Radio #1, Top 100, you know, and it went from hip hop, and then Funky House was literally worldwide sensation. And it was just such a fantastic time because that music, it was original, and it was like one after the other. And basically the two main labels at that time on vinyl, Defected and Subliminal. And they were just killing it. Like every release was just...
That was what it was. 2003 was Funky House in Ibiza. It was housey, isn't it?
I'd say bit from trance. From 98 till around 2004-ish was the kind of Funky House era, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then so obviously you got DJing into the DJ scene over in Ibiza. How did that start? I haven't got any memory of anything that far back. So I haven't got a clue where you first started. Where was your first gigs and things like that?
I was hoping you were going to tell me because I can't remember either. Nah, I'm joking. So no, I got to Ibiza, and just to go a little bit further back, when I started DJing, before that I played the piano since I was 4 years old, and then I had a synthesizer keyboard when I was 15. This Yamaha thing, and I was making music on it, and this was like pre-computer. So it was a wee bit tedious. You'd basically have to record, you could have 16 parts in a song, and you hit record and say you're making a 4-minute song, you do the kick, the high, the bass, whatever. And if you make a mistake on this part, you're going to go back to the beginning. So it was fine. I was into it. And then my brother got these decks. And when he first showed me what was going on, I was like, so hold on a minute. You're playing other people's music and getting credit for it. I was like, it's pathetic. That was my first initial genuinely, I swear, initial reaction to DJing. And then about a year later, my brother Ed, who I'm pretty sure you've met, he was going to Australia for the year, and I was living in Manchester at the time, and he asked me if I would look after his turntables for him. And originally I said no. And I said, look, I'm kind of asking a favour because I don't want to leave them at mum and dad's house. Even if you don't use them, they look fucking cool. Just have them in your place. And I was like, all right. And he goes, and I'll leave you a box of vinyl. And I was like, okay, fine. And he's like, just one more thing, just in case you want to touch them. This is faster. This is slower. That's to slow it down. That's to speed it up. See you later. And then I'm working away on my synthesizer keyboard, and after about 3 or 4 weeks or something, I'm looking at those decks, and I'm just like, I'll have a little go. And as soon as I touched the vinyl, I was like, that kind of feels kind of nice. And then I started to go for it. And then basically at that time, so we're talking 97, 98-ish, I studied Eric Murillo and Pete Tong. Eric Murillo at that time, in my opinion, was the best for flair and music. And Pete Tong was basically the master of, the majority of club tracks start with a kick and end with a kick. And Pete Tong would basically play the whole song and do a perfect beat match. You can't hear anything. And then for the next song. And I'm like, if I can master what Murillo and Pete Tong are doing, both of them, get that in my locker, then I've got it. And literally that year in Manchester, I was 12 hours a day DJing, in my bedroom, white walls, bang, 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 bang. And then eventually when I got my first gig, I can't remember, it was somewhere in Manchester, I was just no nerves because I'd literally had a year of 12 hours a day of studying Murillo and Pete Tong, and I'm not leaving my bedroom until I can do what they can do. And then I would turn up to my first gig and I'd be like, have you got a third deck? And they'd be like, what?
Where was your first gig?
I think Manchester Prague 5 it was called, which is in we're talking quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think it was.
If we spin that question, do you remember your first gig in Ibiza?
Yes, Orange Corner.
My God, who else said that? Somebody else said that.
Jamie Gittins.
It wasn't Jamie. Who did I speak to?
Mark Joseph.
It would come to me during this chat.
Yeah,
it would come to me. But yeah, so I remember Sean Hughes being there as well.
Yeah.
Yep. I can't remember who I spoke to. We did a podcast the other day, and the Orange Corner seems to pop up quite a lot from that era.
Yeah, it was quite unbelievable that first year that I did the season 2003. From my memory, there was basically myself, Sean Hughes, and Jay Barker, and the three of us were the new schoolers that were creating a bit of a fuss.
Yeah.
A bit of noise, and it was unbelievable, both are really good friends. Sean Hughes in particular is one of my inner circles and always will be. And unbelievably, we started and finished Ibiza at the exact same year, which is really poetic. And he went the Amnesia route and I went the Space route, and we've kind of intertwined. And yeah, I really love Sean so much. He's incredible.
Who else was some of the key people who helped you through your journey in Ibiza when you first started out?
I would say number one mentor, Jason Bai.
Okay.
Jason Bai, I met in my second year, and as soon as I met him, So this was my second year, and I had a residency at Salinas. So you have Sutrincha at one end, and then there's 4 bars. So going from Sutrincha, then it was Jockey Club, Malibu, and then Guarana was the one that I was playing at. And Guarana, the family, had never had a DJ there before. And they asked me to basically be the resident DJ and create a sound. So going to my number 2, Jason By number 1, I went down to Sutrincha and listened to the maestro, John Sutrincha.
Yeah.
And I listened to him for like a lot. And not to copy, just to kind of get an idea of what he's doing.
What works.
Exactly. And obviously I'm going to put my music and spin on it.
Reverse engineer, as I called it.
Yeah, exactly. But basically they were the 2 main inspirations, and Jason By was definitely the mentor, for sure.
He's been going for 3 decades out there now.
Yeah, he's... Yeah, I mean, I don't need to tell anybody about
does.
Jason By.
Nobody does. Nobody does.
The word legend gets thrown around too often, but Jason By, full stop.
And what do you find the biggest challenges to becoming a successful DJ in Ibiza? I mean, that back then, I'm talking.
It wasn't really so much challenges. It was the case of like trying to get paid. In my first season, I basically got a copy of Mixmag, wrote down the lists of all the bars and all the clubs on the island, and I was like, I'm going to try and play everywhere, right?
Plan.
Because genuinely, I went to Ibiza very humbly in my first year, expecting to get a lesson, as in, I'm confident DJ, but I'm going to go to Ibiza
for an education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I really mean this with zero ego, but aside from the top DJs like Carl Cox and, the kings of the scene, I was kind of like underwhelmed in terms of like the majority of DJs were solid, but they were just kind of doing basic mixing. There was only 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 maybe that were really like Dirty Rottens for sure. Sean Hughes, as we mentioned, Jason By, just a select few that were like had their own thing going on. And so after my first season, I basically DJ'd pretty much every single bar apart from Mambo and Café Del Mar, which I did in my second year, and I played Eden and Es Paradis in my first year and was resident Es Paradis in my second year. But the majority of the gigs I did in my first year were for free. I had 1 weekly paid gig at a place called Cube, which is in Ibiza town, and I was so fortunate with the timing because 2003, I believe, was the last year of the Ibiza town chaos. Like all the bars there, they're like really small inside. And they've got the big terrace, and so you got like 10 or 20 people who are gonna like fill up that bar, and so you've got maybe 5-6 people, and I'm like kind of next to the bar, like swashed in here with vinyl, and then but you're playing to like the outsides, like the outsides, and it's not like people are going nuts. It's a warm up for the club.
Yes.
Anyway, whilst I'm DJing, you got 5 or 6 people in this bar. Then you get like the Manumission parades come into the bar and like squash in, like what, like, well, the Manumission.
Yeah, of course.
And that's just one of many. Like then you get like the Flower Power parades. All these different parades, and they would come into the bar to the point where like squash. And the DJ
they'd all have a shot as well, And,
of course. It was just so phenomenal. And then the following year, I went back to Cube. The following year, I got residencies at Savannah and Salinas Beach and Es Paradis. And then with Cube and Ibiza Town, he basically said to me that we've got to bring the volume down at 12. not super low. And I was like, okay, it is what it is. And then it kind of just went lower and lower and lower. And I think I did it for like 3 years, and then, you know the story with, unfortunately.
Were the parades still carrying on? I know they started to dwindle out as well, which I thought was really sad.
Yeah,
they were great. They were just a great sight for both San An and in Ibiza town. I mean, they put some real effort into it. And
I was just about to say, Dex, that there's definitely, you can draw similarities between the port and Ibiza town and the West End in San Antonio, where you've got such a special vibe for so many people, but the residents aren't happy, you know? Yeah. And basically, on both Ibiza town and San Antonio, eventually the residents won. And Ibiza town, the port, I was there last year, there's nothing, and sadly, as we know, the West End is. Yeah.
I just got a picture in my head of Ibiza town just buzzing on the port. And it was
absolutely phenomenal.
Head I was Candy DJing and all those guys. And,
I was DJing every Wednesday at this place, Cube, and I had obviously a box of vinyl. And Wednesdays just happened to be Eric Murillo at Pasha.
Wow!
And I would always, literally every single Wednesday, I would turn up to Pasha with my record box, and I would just go to the front of the queue with my record box, and I'd say hi to the security, and they would just like, hola, and they'd be like, hola, and I'd just show them my vinyl, and they just let me in. Yeah. And then I'd go into DJ booth, I'd see Eric Murillo, and back in the vinyl days, there was like a real code of respect that if you've got a box of vinyl, you can definitely put your vinyl in the DJ booth. You know, you're not going to play, but like it's sacred, you know, of course you can keep your vinyl in the DJ booth. So I did that the whole season, just blagged myself into Pasha. Like they didn't know who I was. I'm just turning up with a record box. Oh, well, he must be DJing, right? Well, I actually just finished DJing and I'm here to see Aaron Murillo, but whatever. And I go in and just put my record box, like give Murillo a little high five and kind of put my records here, sure. See it till the end of the night, grab my record, see you later. Yeah.
Do you know what? That's really weird. We used to do that with record bags in London.
Oh, yeah?
We used to turn out record bags and just literally work most of the time. In you go.
Yeah.
It was it was amazing. Everything wasn't digital. I mean, try doing that at Pasha now, you know.
Yeah, I know for sure. Yeah.
Where's your barcode? You know, shit like that. And it's, me and my mates used to do the record bag job many times. Now, that's really fascinating that you played Ibiza Town, you played on the beaches, you played Café Del Mar, you played the clubs, bars. So what's like a typical summer for you? What's it like playing all over the island? You must have had transport or how did you manage all that?
So for the first 10 years, so the first year I told you about, and so the second year till my 10th year, so the following 8 or 9 years, I was doing around about 10 gigs a week. And so I'm basically going from 20 years old to 30 years old. And I absolutely loved it because I was playing lots of different styles, you know, so like Salinas Beach, I'm playing like Chillout, chill beach house. And then I'm playing maybe funk and disco at Space. And then I'm banging out some techno wherever. And, you know, and that's still true to today, you know, like, and as long as I'm able to play different music, then I'm quite happy to DJ most days. If, as much as I love house and techno, if I got offered a residency, even for really good money in a brand new club, you've got to play 7 nights a week. And like, absolutely not. Because you lose your passion for it. But yeah, luckily in Ibiza, like I said, I had so many different styles that I was able to play. And that's what really like fueled me, you know.
Do you know what? That's really weird you say that, because it mirrors what Dean from Dirty Rotten was saying the other day on a podcast. He was saying that they were successful because they played everything. Like the promoter or a venue owner would say, well, what music do you play? And I go, what do you want us to play? You know? Because they did everything from the 70s, 80s, 90s bar through to Manumission, through to proper breaks. And if you said to me today, what did they play back in the day? I'll be like, do you know what? I'm not actually too sure where to pigeonhole them. And I think Sean's similar as well.
Yeah.
He's got a fantastic range of knowledge of music. And I think that's what is a big separator of the people that survive and make a success in Ibiza, especially.
For sure. And it's a choice. At the end of the day, I play from sunset, beatless, chill out, like borderline classical music, all the way through funk, disco, house, all kinds of house, to full power techno, like full power techno.
Full spectrum.
Yeah. And I love it. And over the years, it's basically, it's got pros and cons. So if you're like myself, where basically you decide that you're going to play whatever you want to play, you're basically going to play the music that you love, then you will get bookings, and you can get different bookings in different places, but certain promoters and clubs might not book me because, oh no, I think Marco Loco's like sort of like commercial funky house. They might put me in a pigeonhole.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not correct. But you've got other DJs that I really respect that stick to a specific sub-genre. Let's say currently, for example, melodic techno.
Yeah.
Right?
Trance, you mean?
And they... No. Let's not...
I couldn't resist.
No.
Oh,
I'm going to give you an air 5 for that one. Air 5.
The voice in my head say, don't say it.
So you've got people like myself, John Trincha, Sean Hughes, and the Dirty Rons, the list goes on, where we basically decide from the get-go that we're going to play whatever music that we want. And so we're multi-genre, and we can do this, and we can do this, we can do this. That can sometimes put promoters off because they're not quite sure exactly what Marco Loco does. They might think that I'm funky commercial or whatever. Whereas, I've actually got thumping current underground techno, like hours of it if you want. Anyway, then you've got other DJs, producers that stick to a particular subgenre. Let's pick two. Let's say Chicago House, and let's say melodic techno. Don't say it. And look, they've got their passion in it. Yeah, it's what they love. And they basically get bookings because the promoter of the club, they know exactly what they want and they know exactly what they're going to get.
What's on the tin?
So it's kind of, it's got pros and cons. If you do this or you do that. And, back in the day, I remember in my first couple of years in Ibiza when I was doing Salinas and Savannah Sunsets, I was really like the chill out stuff was like really bringing me in. And I was thinking, I think I'm better playing chill out than club music. And then obviously I started to get into like space and stuff like, well, you know what, let's just go for everything.
So
just
you mentioned space. Let's go on to that huge part of your journey in Ibiza. How did you start at space? How did you get involved?
Okay, so 2002. Oh, sorry, my iTunes just opened up for some reason. Just shut this down. You still there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Cool. So the first time I went into space, I was with my brother. And I just kind of had I refer to it as a DJ hard-on. So not literally.
Yes. Okay.
But I'm literally like...
begin to picture that. What actually
there's just some places that you walk in as a DJ and you're like, I belong here.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, I'm a baby at this point, and I've not even started DJing around Ibiza, but I knew. Anyway, so the first 2 or 3 years, I built up quite a resume. DJed pretty much every bar, had Es Paradis, Eden, started doing Manumission Toilets after the Dirty Rottens. And then I basically, 2006, I went to Space. I'd emailed them a load of times, no reply. And So I just went down there, and the manager, and he'd been the manager for at least, I'd say, 20 years, a guy called Fritz, if I'm
That's
not
it.
mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
And I get there like, whatever, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I speak to the receptionist. And after my first season in Ibiza, I studied Spanish online. So I was able to speak basic Spanish when I went
Good
back
move.
the second
Wise
year.
move.
Yeah, yeah. And I really enjoyed it. It's a lovely language to learn. So yeah, I chatted a wee bit of Spanish, and I was like, yeah, Marco Loco here to see da-da-da. Sorry, he's busy today. I was like, well, that's okay, I can wait. And she's like, well, I don't know if he's going to have any time. I was like, do you mind if I just wait? And there's literally like a seat, like one seat. And she's like, okay. So it's like 10 in the morning, and it gets like midday or something, and he comes out of his office, looks at me, and just carries on. He's gone out for lunch. He comes back, looks at me again, and goes back to his office. And then it gets to like 4:30 p.m. I've been there for like 6.5 hours. It's just guys before social media, so you're not scrolling on your phone.
Oh,
You're just like you're just waiting.
I ain't going.
No problem. And then Fritz comes out of his office, and he's about to leave, like he's done for the day. And I was like, sorry if it's not Fritz. I'm not 100% sure if that's the name. I think so. Don't quote me on that. It was a long time ago. Anyway,
I believe it is.
I think so.
Yep.
So then he's about to leave. I said, sorry, in Spanish. I was like, I've been waiting here since 10 o'clock. I was like, I just need 2 minutes of your time. And he's like, come on then. And he goes into the office, and man, this guy, he's like eyeballing, like, looking at me straight in the eye. Like, you can feel it, like, as in, are you wasting my time or not?
Yeah,
right.
I get it.
So I'm like strong, and I'm giving them it right back, with confidence. And I said, look, I've DJ'd here. I feel that now I have enough experience to show that I can play space. And he's like, we've already got enough residents. And he starts name dropping, by Bizy and John Newell's and da-da-da-da. And I said, and he goes, why do we need you? And I said, well, because I'm different. I said, like, I also play Salinas Beach. He goes, oh, you play Salinas Beach? And I said, yeah. And I said, look, I'm a weapon. I said, you can put me any room, anytime, and I'll do it. And he's like, okay, so come and play next Sunday. What? He's like,
did you play?
Are you okay?
Though? Did you play cool?
No, I did say what, and then a bit like what, and he's like, can you play on Sunday or not? I was like, yeah, I can play on Sunday. He's like, okay. So then a few days later, I think the management, like his assistant, sends me an email of the set times, and it was the Premier Taj
upstairs on the roof.
Yep.
If memory serves right, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And unbelievably, Nightmares on Wax is on before me.
Okay.
So Nightmares on Wax, George, I was listening to his music before I started DJing. So this was genuinely, I swear, I've met a lot of big DJs. I've met a few personalities and, Hollywood, whatever.
Jazz.
This was the only time in my life where I was genuinely a little bit starstruck, even though he's from Leeds and he's like the most sound, cool, chill guy. Just musically, I'm a wee bit overwhelmed, like coming on after this guy. I can't believe it. So anyway, I introduced myself, told them a very short story because we're literally just switching over. And I started to play. And then as soon as I start playing, this Spanish guy comes over, I think Miguel, his name was, and he said, listen, we've been recording live on global radio. Do you mind if we keep recording? I'm like, sure. So I carry on DJing, and I think I played around 3 hours-ish. And I finished my set, and then the guy from global radio comes over to me and he goes, okay, we've recorded the whole set. We stopped recording. We'd like to offer you a residency on Global Radio. Would you be available every Monday from 4 till 5? I'm like, and at that point, Global Radio was the #1 radio in Ibiza. And I was like, sure. So that was that. And then I get an email from the manager of Space saying, congratulations on your Global Radio residency. And I was like, thanks. And he's like, welcome to Space. You're in every Sunday. I was like, okay. And then that following winter, I'm emailing him. I was in Dubai that winter, and I was emailing him a lot, and there was no reply. And then I get back to Ibiza, and I find out after 20 years or so of this guy being the manager, he's left.
Yeah.
And there's now a new guy, Juan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, after all that, like everything I just told you, now I'm going to start again. This guy doesn't know who I am. So then it took me...
You didn't wait for 6 hours in a waiting room again, did you?
No, but it took me till I was emailing, and then eventually around about, I think it was July 2007. Yeah. I went to Space and asked to speak to the new manager. And yeah, he'll be available in 10 minutes. And literally the polar opposite to Fritz. Like, literally comes like, Marco Loco, I'm Juan Arenas. And I go to shake his hand. He's like, no, abrazo. And he gives me a massive hug. Like, I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Come in. Like, you want a drink? You want a shot? I'm like, no, water's fine. Okay, cool. He's like, so what's up? And I was like, well, basically, I did this last year, and then I was told I was going to be resident this year, but we're now in July, and haven't really got anything. And he's like, well, we've kind of got all our DJs sorted. And I kind of said the same thing that I said to Fritz. I said, look, I'm kind of a weapon where you can put me in any room anytime. And he's like, okay, maybe we'll put you on Sunday. This Sunday okay for you? I'm like, yeah.
You've been here before.
Same story, but with a super friendly guy. And then, bang, as soon as I touch it in Space, they were like, every week, done. And then, yeah, the Space story just grew and grew and grew. I was basically in-house resident for Space, along with, I think, 3 or 4 others. So when I'm working on Sunday at We Love, I'm actually Space and We Love are collaborating, and Space can put in some of their residents at
it was a big 22-hour event, wasn't it? It was like
so I was doing that, and then the more I got involved, then I basically started to do Café, which was a kind of gay-friendly night, Spanish night, huge in Spain. And as soon as I played for them once, then it became a weekly residency. And then Tour Room, Mark Knight was at Space, and again, played for them the first event. And I don't know if it was Mark Knight himself or somebody in the Tour Room management was like, yeah, we want that guy every week. And then the final frontier was getting into the Carl Cox crew. Because slowly over the years, in my humble opinion, in the beginning, Sundays at Space were the best.
It was Space. At one point,
and then
it was renowned for that.
Very gradually, over a decade-ish, in my opinion, the Carl Cox party became bigger than the Sundays at Space, in my personal opinion. So I really, really wanted to get in there, and that wasn't. That event was strictly run by the Carl Cox management. There was no Space DJs performing, So eventually I get the contacts for that, and I spoke to them, and that season they were like, we're fully booked, we'll try you out next year. I'm like, cool. And then the following year they got me in really early, and same old story. I did the first one, and they're like, sweet, we're going to give you once a month. So I think it was 4 gigs. So that was 4 gigs for Carl Cox, every week for Café, every week on the Sunday. It was there was a good 4 or 5 years where I was DJing at Space 3 or 4 times a week.
Do you know what? I didn't realize it was that much. That's
insane.
Yeah, I didn't.
I actually, as a little geek, calculated. I kind of like calculated the amount of gigs roughly that I did at Space, and it's close to the 100 mark over the years. And compared to basically everyone else that played at Space, including Carl Cox, I think I'm around about, well, definitely in like the top 5 most used DJs at Space of all time.
Wow.
And
okay.
And no one can ever take that away. And
You got your calculator out for that one, didn't you?
I'm eternally grateful forever for that.
Yeah. I mean, what was
Yeah.
do you have a standout memory at all from Space? Obviously, you've just told me a fair few there.
So I told you about the beginning, and let me tell you about the end, because there's a lot in the middle, but we can't talk till this time next year. So let me just fast forward to the end. So
we can do another one of these and just talk all about Space. Don't worry.
Dex, should we just like chat every day? Anyway, so yeah. So let me fast forward. I told you the beginning, and we'll go to the end. So 2015, that year was the first year that I was deciding to potentially leave Ibiza. So 4 years in a row, or maybe more than that, going back and forth, you know, the seasons worked beautifully to Ibiza to Thailand. And I was constantly preferring Thailand to Ibiza because of the changes that were going on in Ibiza. And I was like, maybe it's time to move. And I was like, it's really tough because I thought I would live in Ibiza forever. You know,
Me too.
I had such a strong, like yourself and like so many people, such a strong personal connection with the island, like so many people have. And then I was just like, you know what? Right now, I've got to go because I don't want to turn into one of these guys that's like, you should have been here 10 years ago. I mean, now it's a bunch of bollocks. I don't want to be negative. I'm a really positive person, and I'm not positive when I'm in Ibiza at the moment. So it's time to leave for now.
Something's off.
So, yeah. So in 2016, so 2015 was my final full season. And in 2016, I knew already that Space was closing that year. So this was another big reason why I left. Like, slowly but surely, all my favorite residencies came to a close. And it was my fault, I swear.
Yeah.
But like, we're talking about SVV Hotel. I was resident there for 13 years. That was my longest. Salinas Beach, I think 10 years. Hush in San Antonio, that was about 8 years or something.
Rocking parties.
Shipwrecked, which we then had a break, and then 3 years later I did it with a new partner, and we turned it into Ship Face, which very different party. It was 80 capacity, and then that stopped. And slowly, in the Salinas Beach, Guarana got sold to a different family. No DJ.
Okay.
SVV closed. Hush closed. This closed. Space is closing. And then I look at what Ibiza has to offer, like as a DJ for me, and I'm like, no, like this is not my vibe anymore. For now, I've got to leave. So 2015 was my last year, and then 2016 was really, really special. It was my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, so I've got a big family. There's like 24 of us, as in from my mum and dad, siblings and their kids. And on top of that, my brother and his wife got married at the same time. So a few months before this, I emailed Dave Browning, who was helping to run, one of the managers of Carl Cox events. And I said, look, I'm going to be there for a month. I know Space is closing this year, and it would just really mean the world to me to do one more gig at Space. And for me, I would just love it to be for the Carl Cox party, you know. I said, you can put me anywhere, like anytime, like duration, whatever you want. And then he got back to me and he goes, okay, Marco, so you always play in the Sunset Terrace. So I gave you the Sunset Terrace, 6 hours, 12
Wow.
to 6. I can't remember the exact date. It was like middle of July or something. I was like, okay, great. So this was after my brother's wedding. So I had some family there, a lot of Ibiza friends, and I was DJing, and I've got like videos from it, and it's interesting when you watch my body language, like bittersweet, is the word, because I know it's the end. And I'm basically DJing the whole way, and I've kind of got a rough plan of what I'm doing, and I've made a few different folders of how I'm going to progress through the night. And the final folder had about 20 tracks in it. Last track at Space. Like, what are you going to do, right? So it's getting to 5 o'clock, and I've got an hour to go. And then I'm starting to look in that folder, and I've got some of my own productions, some classics, and whatever. And then to fast forward the story, it gets like, I bring down the volume at like 5 to 6 or whatever, and I've got one more track. And kind of by source of elimination, tracks that I already played and whatever, I brought the volume down. People want one more song, and I play Joe Smooth's Promised Land. And when I played it, I went onto the dance floor. All the bar staff came on the dance floor, gave me a massive hug. They were crying. I was crying. I had family there. I beat the friends there. It was just the most perfect goodbye. To top that off, Dex, I don't know if I've told you this before. So in Carl Cox parties, they basically close all the rooms at 6, and then Carl goes on for as long as he wants, ish, in the discoteca, which is great. That's the way it should be, so everyone can be together for the ending. And on that particular night that I was DJing my last set, it was Carl Cox and Nick Fanciulli back to back in the discoteca. So I've got a bunch of my family, a load of friends, with about crowd of 30 of us, whatever. So after I kind of like wipe away the tears, go into the fucking discoteca, we're having it, and brilliant vibes, absolutely loving it. And I think it got to around about 9 o'clock in the morning, and they stopped the music, and everyone's clapping, screaming, and then the chants, one more tune, one more tune. I've got major goosebumps. Carl Cox goes, one more tune, yeah? And he drops Promised Land, Joe Smooth. And the 30 people that I'm with look at me, and I'm looking at them. I'm like, what? And they were like, and I was like, no, he was DJing, like, when I was playing that. So there's no possibility of that. All I know is that I made the right choice for my last track, because 3 hours later, Carl Cox was playing the same track. And man, this track was made a thing in 1987. Like, what are the chances of that?
The universe working its magic.
Insane. So that was my
magic.
Last proper Ibiza magic.
Yeah, I mean, those moments.
Insane. So then, just to finish off this little space story, so then I was supposed to leave Ibiza. I'd been there for a month, and I was supposed to leave on the Friday. And then on that Friday, I think it was Glitterbox at Space. So let me grab some water somewhere. I'm sure. Oh, I've got some coffee here. Yeah. Sure, I had some water somewhere. No, it's here. Anyway, so yeah, where was I? I was supposed to leave Ibiza on the Friday, and I'd been there for a month. Like I said, my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, my brother's wedding, my last gig at Space, and then on that Friday I was supposed to leave. It was Glitterbox at Space, and Roger Sanchez was playing on the other terrace, a classic house set. And Roger Sanchez is the only top tier DJ, well, one of two top tier DJs that are a close friend. I've known him for a long, long time, and we really connect. And I'm like, I think I can stay an extra day, because I had like this emotional last DJ gig. I deserve a dance off, and it's Sanchez, I'm like super comfy, I'm at home and, whatever. So obviously, like, I'm sure I'm not the only person change the flight. You ever done that?
Oh, yeah. By accident.
Yeah. So I think I was the first person in history to change the flight from Ibiza. So I'm like, right, I'm going to go to space and I'm going to enjoy, Anyway, I get there and all the staff, like the managers, like they give me like T-shirts and like bottle of Yerbas and like, Marco, thank you so much for coming, all this stuff. And it's already quite emotional. And then Sanchez comes in and I'm in the DJ booth and the other, not the Sunset Terrace, the other terrace, the DJ booth is pretty huge, basically. So like where the DJ is, like you've basically got a lot of space. So I'm in there, but like chilling way back. Like I'm not near. Like I like the way when I'm DJing, I don't want people in my space. I don't mind if you're behind me, but
yeah.
So
not
anyway,
like the scenes that you see these days.
Oh, we can talk about that later. So
I don't think so.
So yeah, actually that's not.
Let's not.
So Sanchez gets on the decks and I'm in the DJ booth, like I said, and there's maybe 10 of us. There's plenty of room and I'm just kind of grooving and he's playing a classic house set. And Sanchez, technically, after Murillo had passed away, I would say house DJ-wise, technically he's the best in the world, in my opinion. So he's in his classic house set and a lot of the time when I hear Roger play classic house, it's very similar to what I heard his last classic house set. Yeah. And this particular night of my last time at the Space, it wasn't. He was playing classic house, but it was genuinely as if I was picking the music. He played all my personal favorite classic house tracks, every one of them. And I was like blown away. And obviously with Sanchez on his four decks, flaring. It's just absolutely a masterpiece of classic house music. And I was like overjoyed. And there was a DJ coming after him, but I was definitely leaving the next day. So Sanchez comes off the decks and I give him a big hug. And I was like, thanks so much, Roger. I was like, that was the last set I'll ever hear at Space Ibiza. And I couldn't have asked for a better one. And he's like, what? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I've moved to Thailand now. And he's like, oh, shit. He's like, so you're not seeing the season? And I'm like, no. And he's like, so that was the last set you're ever going to hear at Space Ibiza? And I said, yeah. And he was like, oh, come here, man. I'm honored. And it's just a little sentence. And he grabs me and gives me a hug. And Roger Sanchez saying to me, I'm honored. So as soon as the hug ends, I bolt into the toilet and I'm bursting into tears of like,
wow. I'm surprised he didn't drop Promised Land at the end.
yeah. It was really so beautiful. Like, all good things come to an end. And for me, there was the possibility of me doing Space closing, like the final closing.
Yeah.
But to come from Thailand and it was basically going to be maybe a 45-minute, 1 hour set. I was like, you know what? I've done it. Like it's in that closing that I did for Carl Cox. It was so beautiful, especially with what I told you with the Promised Land thing, and then going back and hearing Sanchez do his thing. We're good. Like I know some people want me to be at the closing, and I actually made a post on the day of Space closing, and it kind of went a little bit viral. Can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something like, DJs, dancers, groovers, sorry I can't be there at Space Ibiza, but please give the club the send-off it deserves. It's a legend. The legacy will live on forever. But at the end of the day, just remember that you're lucky to be there. And I'm sorry,
absolutely,
I can't, something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you last year? You played for us at Kevin and Perry at Amnesia. What was it like being back on the island?
So last year, genuinely, was the first time in about 10 years where I fell back in love with Ibiza. And I give a lot of credit to you and Nick one more time. The previous times that I'd been back, it felt like I was going to see an ex-girlfriend who used to be this cool hippie chick, and then she turned into this chick who only cares about money and champagne. And I'm like, what happened to you?
Yeah.
And, I was telling my wife to be, when we were planning our Europe trip, which originally started with one of my best friends getting married in Barcelona. She was asking to go to Ibiza. I said she's from Canada. She'd never been. And I was like, look, the only strong connection I've got in Ibiza is Café Del Mar. And respectfully, Café Del Mar pay me, but as there's no entry fee and they've got the residents, the money they pay me will not nearly cover the costs of what Ibiza costs these days. So unless something decent comes up on the table, then we can't go. And then you guys show up. So we're doing this thing at Amnesia. I'm like, what? The one club in the world that I've always wanted to play that I've never played.
Yeah, I knew you hadn't played there because you've mentioned it a few times. Just a few times, but awesome night.
Yeah,
With those I'm trying to explain it. These nights are more about the crowd and the actual having fun. And that differentiates massively between some of the majority of the nights that happen nowadays that are DJ led.
Yeah.
So how did those sort of parties compare to the parties?
So the one main thing I'd say is that, like the Kevin and Perry, I would rather call it one more time. I know that you've got the brand name of Kevin and Perry, which is like a phenomenal idea that's just exploded. But the one more time, it's much more about the community on the dance floor, connecting.
Yes.
People dancing together, having a damn good time, not looking at your phone, not looking at your fucking phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And just, enjoying the music together, not necessarily even looking at the DJ so much, if you want. But, you're really with your circle of friends, and that's like the old school clubbing. And
how
that
it should be.
Was what One More Time was about.
Yeah.
We
don't have a no phones policy, and we've never enforced it. And but people very rarely use their phones at our events. And I love that about it, because a lot of people go, ban the phones. It's like, well, you don't need to ban the phones if you've got a community that is coming together, and we build the community. And that's a lot of the reason why we're doing these podcasts, because as I said to you, when we post nostalgic images, videos, etc., it gets a lot of engagement. If I post something a little bit more modern, not so much. And I know I was thinking, well, I'm involved in content creation and stuff like that. Let's just do a podcast with the old school and go really behind the scenes. And who knows how it's going to go? And I just think it works perfectly with what we are and with what I do for a living as well. So we are very, very much music and crowd orientated. As long as the music is bang on, and those people have a great time. That's all that counts, and obviously not losing a shed load of money at the same time, because it's so expensive to put on nights now.
100%. I mean, I've
much
promoted.
Of the cost. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about this. I mean, are you still promoting events?
Yeah. So the only thing I promoted quite a lot after COVID finished. Then I was promoting. So same when I was in Ibiza, I look for things that are missing. For example, I'll stick to Copenhagen for now. For example, there's no funk and disco.
Right.
Let's do a Studio 54 night. And it went nuts. And then I was like, I did Ibiza groove parties in Koh Samui and Koh Tao, but I never did it in Copenhagen because it just didn't feel right previously. And then I think it was 3 years ago-ish. Yeah, just after COVID. Then this new venue opened up called Retro Mountain, and I did Ibiza Groove, and wow, just randomly happened to be 20 years since I started Ibiza Groove.
That was my next question. That was
so yeah, we branded it as that, like 20 years Ibiza Groove.
The universe is working its magic again. I was just about to talk about Ibiza Groove.
And it was, I mean, the venue was for the first time at full capacity. Like, people couldn't get in. It wasn't like DC-10 where you're like sardines.
Yeah.
You know, they respectfully, the capacity's 500. So when they reach 500, it's one in, one out.
One in, one out.
And with that 500, like I said, you're not a sardine. You can move.
Yeah.
You know, it's packed, but you're not squashed. And it was just absolutely epic. And then I continued to promote a few different parties, mainly Ibiza and funk disco, because that was what was not around in Panyang. And then I just kind of got a bit tired of it. It's, as you know, it's very stressful promoting parties.
Really?
I don't really need it.
No, sleepless nights, and
I've got enough
confrontation, I've got
enough DJing on the go, and so I kind of stopped. And then last year, so actually in 2017, I believe it was, I did a boat party in Koh Phangan. Let me reconnect. Close this 1 second, bro.
Yeah, no worries.
Yo, you hear me yet?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 2016 or 17. I did 2 boat parties in Koh Phangan, and they were great. It was all like Koh Phangan locals, you know, like Thais with, you know, expats and whatever, like not really any tourists. And then that boat that we used kind of died, like was defunct. And then the last few years, all the new boat parties were like these like fancy like catamarans, like champagne.
I've seen the footage of some of these things.
80 or 100 euros for a ticket, and I was like, for fuck's sake, I was like, I don't mind. Like, I played on a few of them that I was booked to play. You know, at the end of the day, if it's DJing and they pay me the appropriate fee, the vibe's actually okay. And then last year in March, when I was working a lot, I lived near one of the piers, and I saw this boat, and I was like, whoa, that's the boat. It's basically got an upstairs with like a dance floor, like blank, and downstairs is like seats with aircon.
No
I was
way.
like, that's what we want.
Yeah.
So I hooked up with a friend of mine who lives on the north side of the island, an English guy who speaks fluent Thai and has also got a wakeboarding business, so he's connected with the boat companies. And we basically partnered up, and we started a new boat party called Rock the Boat. And I mean, I'm not going to compare to previous boat parties, but it's definitely, there's so many parties in Koh Phangan, like Ibiza. There's so much going on, and there's nothing like this boat party. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's the worst, but it's very unique.
Yeah. That's what you got to be.
Last month we had a huge international headliner that we couldn't announce because they were doing it as a kind of mates rates,
favor, and they're probably playing somewhere else as well.
Exactly, they had a massive gig that were paying
I get it.
X, and it was perfect. So last month it was my birthday boat. So for that one only, and normally I close them, and I was like, this guy is like one of my favorite DJs in the world. I was like, put him on at the end so I can enjoy my birthday. And it was just magic. And then this next one coming up, which is on the 17th of February, it's a week on Monday. So it's me and my fiance, who's basically an expert of warming up the floor, like groovy deep, and just builds it, just welcoming music. She's mastered it. She's been DJing about 3 years, and genuinely, I would say, with regards to warming up, she's better than me.
She gets it. Yeah,
she's better than me.
Warming up, the warming up, the art of warming up. I was having this conversation with Jonathan Ulysses the other day.
Yeah,
because he plays all sorts as well. That art is lost. We've lost.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
art,
look,
you know,
I still can warm up properly. And if I'm warming up for like a big headline DJ, but say the club's like ready to go like 40 minutes before I finish, then I'll start thumping it. And then with like 20 minutes to go, without really the crowd realizing, I'll just bring it down, like energy wise, not the tempo, just, go a bit more deep, groovy. So, the place is still going, and the next DJ, whatever they play, is going to bang.
Tell you played at Space, because I had the same conversation with Jonathan the other day. That's kind of literally what he was saying, that how he brings it down and up and down and up and
for
down.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it depends, if you're warming up and, you're literally starting with 0 and say you're on from 10 till 12, and at 11 o'clock you got 50 people, and then at like 10 minutes before your set you've got like the club's almost full, then, musically you would go like that. But there are some other times where you're warming up and halfway through your set, club's packed. It's like not warm up time. They want to fly. Then I'll kick it. And then, like I said, just respectfully, 20 minutes to go, just work out in my head how I'm going to bring it down without the crowd, without killing the vibe. So the next DJ can have a massive impact for the next DJ. Okay, so musically, I created an alias in 2017 called Lelo, which is more for chill-out down-tempo.
And this is for your production?
Yeah.
And you do DJ under that name as well? Like that?
Sometimes.
Okay.
But a lot of the time, when people ask me to DJ, say I'm doing like a sunset session, then they want to promote the fact that I'm playing. So I'll say Marco Loco, and then I'll put in brackets Lelo in session.
Yeah, I get it.
So in 2017, I made my first Lelo album, and then 4 years later, I made another one, and this year I'm basically making it. So it'll be the third Lelo album coming out, hopefully by the end of the year.
And tell me about the sound. What sort of sound is it? And is it influenced by being in Thailand? I guess so. It's influenced for sure by Ibiza and Koh Phangan for sure. But long story short, the first album that I made with Lelo, let me get a bit clearer. Can you still hear me, yeah? Yes, I can hear you.
The first Lelo album that I made, I wanted it to basically be music that I love. I collaborated with live musicians on every song, and I basically wanted 10 chill tracks with 10 different chill genres. So one's kind of like trip hop, one's kind of funk, one's disco, one's chilled house, one's sunset chill out, like that. Anyway, I released it, and I actually released it on Graham Sahara's label, Seamless Ibiza, ironically enough.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm really pleased, with the album, but it didn't really fly. It didn't take off. C'est la vie. And then during COVID, I made the second Lelo album, and this one was like properly making music from my heart and soul. So, for example, my brother had his first daughter, and I was the godfather, and they called their daughter Lucia Sky. And as soon as I heard the name, I was like, Lucia Sky. I was like, that's just stunning. And I was so inspired, and I like made a track like within a week of her being born. Like totally fresh, like different chords I'd never really used in my production before. Just real inspiration. And then my mum loves music, and her dad, my grandpa, who's passed away, he performed piano in front of the Queen on several occasions, and he taught me the piano originally when I was 4 years old. So
granddad's fault.
Yeah. And my dad, dad generally says, "Turn off that hoogie bougie," right? Or another one of his quotes that I really, really love is, music's got nothing to do with me. I was like, all right. So it's definitely from mum's side then. All right.
I gather that. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, my dad, when I it was about 8 years ago, and I played him some of my songs. And I know, like, when you play, like, say, chilled house, you know, if you're not familiar with that music, if you hear it, you really just hear the beat, you know, like the 4x4. So what I did with my dad when we were driving, he was driving the car, I basically skipped to the breakdowns, you know, so there's no beat and you can listen to the music. And he's like, "I'll see that I really like." And I said, "Well,
Sure.
that's the music, you know, and like the 4x4 keeps the rhythm." Anyway, so the second Lelo album, getting back to the point, yeah, I made one song for my goddaughter that was just born. And then I send it, especially my Lelo stuff. My mum loves music, so I send all my music to her, like,
How cool
pretty
is
much
that?
before anybody. And then as I was making this Lelo album, she's like, "Oh, so you've written a song for Lou? That's really, really sweet. Maybe you'll write a song for me." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I will." And then literally a week later, she's like, "Yeah, so maybe you'll make a song for me before I die." I'm like, "Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, Mum. Right, okay, I'm on it. And that song, it was called "Oh Mama." And I had two live vocalists, two live guitars, ended up doing a beautiful chill house track, and I made an ambient sunset mix of it as well. And it was really, and that track, because, you know, if I focus my musical attention, I focus, say, on my fiance, like I've made 3 tracks for her so far. And when my mum asked me to make her a track, I like think about my mum.
If you want to say
That
3, Mum only 1.
Oh,
Don't tell her that. That's our secret.
edit,
Edit this.
edit. So,
Close the car.
so long story short, the Oh Mama track, it was super easy. I made it in one day, one session, like with the vocalist, with the live guitar, like thinking about my mum. Bang! It sounds super clean. Mastered it myself. Done. So the second Lelo album was basically music from the heart. It was during COVID, and it was signed to a really well-respected Chillout label called Soul Records. And it did a bit better than the first Lelo album, but again, didn't really fly. You know, it didn't. Lelo is still quite an unknown entity.
It's a niche, though. It's a smaller niche, Mark, isn't it? It's not mainstream. Would you call it mainstream?
No, but I do feel that. So this next Lelo album that I'm working on, it's going to be called The Highest Album. So every track on it is like the est. So I kind of found it quite amusing that, you know, Lelo is making the highest album.
Yeah. Okay.
And every track is like, there's like the guitarist, the mostest, the sweetest, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And with this next project, I'm basically keeping it all from like 110 to 115 BPM. So it's basically kind of like music that you can play poolside, you know, like at a beach party,
that
you could also potentially warm up a bar or club with, you know, if you speed it up a little bit. So really focusing more on that. Every track's going to be different. I've already collaborated with 7 musicians and 4 vocalists on it. I've got 4 tracks done, potentially 6 to go. So that's Lelo. And the Marco Loco stuff, again, you know, it used to bother me. Like in Koh Phangan, I used to run a party here called Jungle Experience, which is massive, like
remember that.
Huge party. And I left after 3.5 years, my role, really respectfully. The party went from 2,000 people to 5,000 people, not just down to me, like with everyone involved, you know. And I was like, I brought in like Bushwhacker, Youssef, and, you know, a load of other people.
Yeah.
And I just felt that the job was really stressful. The main reason I left is because it's once a month and it's such an amazing party, and you basically have about at least 40 to 50 DJs asking me to play every month, right? And out of those 40 to 50, maybe I want 10, you know, as in like good Andy Baxter from Ibiza or whoever, you know, good from Ibiza or this or that. And out of those 10, I can pick 4.
Yeah, tough.
And it was really, really hard. And I always do the best possible decision for the party, always.
Exactly what we're doing one more time.
But at the end of the day, I knew I would hear it from multiple sources. Oh, why didn't you play Jungle Experience? Oh, Marco didn't sort me out. And I am quite sensitive, and after doing it for 3.5 years, and that's international acts and Koh locals. I got unfriended by like quite a few DJs when
I've been unfriended by a few in the last year. I wonder why that is. And I just think it is really difficult. And DJs take it so personally. Artists take it so personally. And the defriending thing, I'm like, why are you defriending me if you're ever going to get booked with us again? I think it's childish. And you know who you are out there.
Yeah.
Well,
in the end, I basically passed it. I passed the baton on to one of my best friends on the island, a DJ called Rob Gritton. Mm-hmm. He's lived in Koh Phangan, I think, since like 2005 or something, and he's really well grounded. He's got a family here, and he's a great DJ. And he was one of the original jungle DJs before I ever played there, and so he's running it now. And I'm basically DJing more or less every second party, so like 6 a year.
Nice amount.
Turn up, get paid, no stress, and sometimes they ask me like if they've got like an option of like, say, 3 different possible headliners, like international, and either Rob or the owners of Jungle might personally message me and ask my opinion on something. I'm more than happy to help you with that.
Yeah, of course.
Just give my personal opinion. But yeah, I've got no stress. So
you seem to get out at the opportunity at the right time for you.
Like I said, I can't do any more for you, and leave it on a high instead
of don't chasing it. This is it. I'm gonna start just tidying this up because obviously we've been chatting for a while, and just to ask you a couple of last.
Just to finish off, we're talking about productions.
Yeah.
So I covered Lelo.
Yes.
And so Marco Loco, production wise, similar to Lelo, I've made one album and I've had about 100 releases, and the amount of DJs that I meet who do you produce? And up until about 4 or 5 years ago, that used to really frustrate me. Because in my head, I'm like, I've made so much music. But then over time, I'm like, well, you've not made anything that's made an impact. Just accept it. It's unfinished business. That's the way it is. So I'm very at peace with it. And now I'm working hard. And basically, the Marco Loco projects I'm working on, I'm remixing my favorite house track of all time. I've done it. I've remixed my favorite house track of all time. It's currently in discussions with the label. I think they're going to go for it, which is going to be
What's the time scale
amazing.
On this? When do you think you'll know?
I don't know. I really don't know.
We could tie it in with this, you see.
I really don't know. I'll personally message you updates on that.
Me, and then we'll update this. Okay.
Yeah, and then I've made another track, an original Marco Loco track, which is exactly my kind of sound, in between tech house and techno, like just so driving and me.
Cool.
And that one I want to kind of potentially get to Tool Room or any respected good tech house label, because it's a unique production. And that's the Marco Loco stuff. And the other production stuff that I'm doing, I won't tell you the name, but I'm basically making a tribute album to my favorite artist of all time.
Okay. Is this a watch this space moment?
Yeah, well, it's gonna be anonymous. I'm using a different name for it. So I'll be silent, and I'm doing it out of respect, because the artist is no longer with us, and the kids that are growing up these days won't know his music. So I'm basically very respectfully remaking the music using very, very few samples. In fact, by the time I finish the project, I'm probably going to take out all the samples, so everything will be clean and copyright free, as an original.
Yeah. I get it.
And it's just to basically let this person's music legacy live on into like the next generation.
That sounds pretty cool, man.
So that's my 3 projects: Loco, Lelo, and my favorite artist of all time tribute album. That's the production side.
That leads me nicely onto DJing and production. Do you think you have to really be producing tracks to break through these days, these modern social media era days? Do you have to make a big track? Obviously, you're seasoned. You've got contacts. Everyone knows you. You played all over the world. But for new, fresh people coming through as a DJ, how they break through is like they might get lucky on Insta or TikTok. They might get a big track by accident, or, do you think you have to DJ and produce simultaneously?
I think so, yeah. But at the same time, you've got to really make music that you believe in, not something like try and make a hit. If you've got that in your head, like, I want to make a hit.
That's what you've always done. You've always done that.
Exactly. And
you've always done that, yeah.
And I've not broken through, but, I put out a post the other day. I just felt really inspired because my music production and DJing actually, since the new year, has definitely leveled up. I've basically reorganized my whole music collection, which is about, I think I calculated about 30,000 tracks into folders of 20 that make sense in my head. And then I was really inspired. I basically put out this post the other day, and I'm just going to quote it. And it says, live life through music that touches your soul. Don't worry about what other people are doing musically. Everyone hears and feels music differently in their own unique way. Stay true to your passion, and you can live a life in music that will fill you with every emotion. And remember that it's not a musical sprint, it's a musical life.
Wow. Lovely words, well written, and very true as well.
I put it under Lelo.
Yeah. I think the one thing you have stayed very true to yourself and haven't just gone down, followed the sheep,
No, of course.
You're obviously musically talented. You're a pianist. You always bring magicians.
You kind of, yeah.
Musicians.
No, magicians is correct.
Musicians
correct.
You do. You put a lot of effort into the creativity behind your music, and that's obvious.
Yeah.
So, what's next for you?
So what's next is basically
anything?
So during low season here, it's something that I wanted to do since COVID. During COVID, there was basically no mental health help on Koh Phangan, and there was 3 suicides in quite quick succession.
Okay.
And I basically scoured the island looking for mental health professionals in different fields. So, for example, a psychologist, an addiction therapist, counselor, life coach, whatever. And I basically formed a team of 10 people, and we created a project called KPCT, which stood for Koh Phangan Come Together. And we were very gentle with our approach, and we basically put out little cards. Something like on one side it said struggling, and it had like a cool image of a gecko like looking a wee bit sad, and then you flip the card over and the gecko's got a thumb up and it's like, we're here to help. And then it would have the website, and then you go onto this website, and then you got different sources of help, so musical, meditational, and then you can go to our volunteers, and the volunteers just had an initial describing what they do. For example, and so if you're in the UK or other parts of the world, if you're depressed, you should see a therapist. Well, maybe you want to see a spiritual healer. Maybe you're struggling with addiction, so you can choose what kind of therapy is good for you. Anyway, I was basically project manager of this thing, and we ran it for about 1.5 years. And I think we helped around 30 to 40 people privately, obviously.
Amazing.
And then from that, two of the people from my project set up the first official rehab and wellness center on Koh Phangan.
Wow.
Which is so then when that happened, then we kind of closed my project. And ever since I started that in 2020, I really, really wanted to get into this. Like I wanted to be a player, and then I looked into a lot of different fields, and I was basically like, psychotherapy is what I want to do. To be a psychotherapist is a 5-year degree with a year's supervision. So I spoke to all the different professionals that I know, like that I'm really close with, and they all said the same advice. They said, don't worry about doing an online degree, like because you're super busy, you don't have time for it. Just do like a counselling thing. So in last October, I applied for counselling skills 1 to 5, and I googled it, and basically once you get to level 5, legally and morally, you're allowed to practice. So I did it. The exam, it was 4 units. The final exam was due January 11th. I submitted it on Christmas. And on my birthday, January 13th, it gets doubly verified by different psychologists from different universities. And then I get my certificate on my birthday. Congratulations, you've qualified. I'm like, bang.
Yeah, universe working its magic again.
Yeah, so I'm putting it in the back pocket for now. We're going to be in Europe for a month from the middle of April till middle of May or end of May. And when I come back, then I'll basically kick that off.
Respect. And let me just ask you, we've been chatting a while now. We're going to pop to the final question. Yeah. And you know what it is, because we ask everyone. If the world was burning and coming to an end, what would be your one more tune of the night? Or has it already been mentioned in this?
It's already been mentioned. It's my brand new remix of my favorite house track of all time, which I cannot disclose.
Okay.
I
thought you were going to say Promised Land.
No, because I played it out. I played it out for the first time a few days ago, and I got goosebumps. It's the kind of the track is so special to me that when I was doing it, I put so much heart and soul, as in really respect the original, just bring it to the current year.
When is it being released? Is it released?
We don't know. I'm waiting to have a chat with the label.
I'd love to put it on. I'd love to tag it on the end of this if and when it gets released.
Dex, I can send it to you personally so you can wrap your ears around it. Okay.
Yeah. I think this podcast is going to take a little bit of editing and magic and layering and stuff. So I'm just going to call it an end there, man. That's been a fascinating chat. You know what? I've known you for years. I didn't know half that stuff. Even though we've done one of these interviews before.
No. Listen, we always move forward.
There's a lot. And even the history of space, I didn't know half of that stuff. But I've said to everybody on these podcasts that my memory has been battered over the years, and I just get invigorated by talking to people now, because it brings back so much of those special times. And I remember so much. Oh my God, I forgot I did that. I forgot you did that.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So Marco, thank you very much. Yeah. You've been an absolute gentleman.
Thank you, Dexter. I really,
will we
really
be seeing you? Are you in Ibiza this year?
I will be, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be there in September. I'm going to be in Ibiza the middle of May.
Middle of May, okay.
I'll be speaking to yourself and Nick. I'm not desperate for gigs. We're basically looking for wedding venues.
Okay.
We're definitely doing a gig at Café Del Mar. I've also got a corporate gig confirmed. My sister's company from America are actually doing something in Ibiza, so I'm doing a gig for them. And if there's something to do with One More Time, time, of course.
Reach out to Nick, without a doubt. He's in charge of all that lot. I'm not, for sure. But thank you very much, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you, Dex. I really love and respect what you guys are doing with this whole podcast and everything you've done One More Time. So much love and respect, and thank you so much for having me on.
Back to you.
Yeah. All right. Lots of love,
buddy.
bro. Cheers, brother.